So it opens with a brief volley of what I think is clarinet. Really little fucker. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Audiophiles, you bastard. My name's John. His name is Andy. Where is Mona? She's long gone. Where is Mary? She's taken her along, but they haven't put their mittens on. More on that later. But first, Andy, what track have you selected for us today?
Well, continuing this little theme we've got going on here, where we're revisiting artists from our past. We at one point did a episode devoted to a band called Soul Coughing, and the song was Circles. I don't need to walk around in circles. So the sort of mastermind behind Soul Coughing is a one Mike Doughty. So I wanted to bring one of his tracks that he released just on his own, to the of which there are many, to the channel. So I decided on a track called "Busting Up a Starbucks" by Mike Doughty. So, do you have any familiarity with that track at all by chance? I hope not. Good. For the sake of this episode, that helps. So yeah, great. Please go off and give Busting Up a Starbucks by Mike Doughty a spin and come back and let me know what you think.
Will do. Clarinet.
It will always be the end of time, the end of the law, the end of life. The dogs will howl and yank the leash.
I just thought that a second. Yeah, so it starts off with this, I think it's a clarinet. And then this very rhythmic acoustic guitar. And your man starts singing, it will always be at the end of time, the end of law, the end of life. It's a fairly incredible, quite a flat delivery. Um, yeah, which is fine. And then you just randomly get that clarinet come back, and the way it sounded, it just put me in mind, and I do apologise for this, but sort of carry on up the Khyber, it'd be one of those sound effects. Um, comedy wise. Yeah. The beat's really sort of stringent. It sounds like somebody hammering away at something. Um, yeah, Mo Tucker style. But it's a real lump hammer job. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, let's see how this goes.
From tree to tree, from each to each. Does the man who made the shoes own you, clown? You can't even buy the nameplate off now, can you? Fix it with your tiny fist there, James. Xander, Deacon, ma'am, sisters from sister, sister.
Did I just hear that right?
Now can you fix it with your tiny fist there, James Vander Beacon, ma'am, sisters from sister, sister.
Holy shit, the Dawson. I don't know why he's mentioned that. And Sister, I think he said, which I'm kind of aware of, but I'd never watched. Um, Twins, weren't they? I think. Yeah. But yeah, that's odd reference. Yeah, interesting. There was some nice plinking going on here. I'm not sure quite what it was, because it was just enough in the mix to hear it, but not enough to really hear it. It could have been like a keyboard, like piano. I'm not sure. Yeah, interesting.
only one that's ever found this is you. The force that's forcing you to feel like busting up a Starbucks. Busting up a Starbucks. Busting up a Starbucks. Busting up a Starbucks. This bitter drink has made you drunk. The thoughts you think become unthunk. The seas are blaze, the sky is too. The water's red and the flames are blue. Does the man who made the shoes own you, clown? You can.
So I just thought before I forget. So that was interesting because I think he's starting to repeat. So it's very much kind of like the groove that he's hitting. The melody isn't really strong. It's just he's got into this pocket and he's going on with it. It's very nice, you know. And the sort of I thought I detected some sort of horns, like brass, in the. I guess it was that the chorus, though. You repeated busting up Starbucks like 4 times. We come into the second verse, and I think I heard like a banjo, and then we get this strangulated sort of symphony, sort of the cut off in their prime, as it were. These synthetic keyboard noises coming in. Yeah, really, it's like lots of little cameos. Guest starring Larry Hagman. Don't know why he popped into my head, but yeah, it's just adding on to it. This very sort of basic framework.
Even by the nameplate off now, can you fix it with your tiny fist there up? James Vanderbeek and them sisters from Sister Sister. The only one that's ever felt this is you. The force that's forcing you to feel like busting up a Starbucks. Busting up a Starbucks. Busting up a Starbucks. Busting up a Starbucks. Nyack. Unconquerable. East Orange. Piscataway. Busting up a Starbucks.
Okay, so that was sorry to keep saying. There was definitely the honking, the Canadian geese honking of a tenor sax there, definitely. And then he said some words which I'm not sure what language they were. Was it Nyack, Ronkonkona, East Orange, and Biscuit Away? I don't know. Yeah, interesting.
Busting up a Starbucks. 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 Busting up a Starbucks.
Interesting. It's like that. Kid falling down the stairs, fade out, and then, hang on a minute, we've left one beat behind. There he is, safely gathered in. Bizarre. Yeah, all these layers to it. I think if you took away the vocal track, I don't know how much of a song you would still have. It's all very rhythmic. Do you know what? In a way, it kind of reminded me of this. Sounded very American. I'm sure this guy's American. If he tells me he's from Catford, I will be agog. Um, this sounds like a kind of American version of Beta Band, some where they'd layered some of their stuff. Um, and how effective it is, I guess, depends on the listener. But yeah, it's really interesting. There's sort of that sort of what instrument that was. It's kind of like I'll use the word again. I've used it twice in one. A strangulated clarinet that gives it that Eastern sound, and bits in there. Yeah, I don't really get about the busting up the Starbucks. Whether just running riot in a coffee emporium, or is he trying to smash, um, you know, the system as in big corporate companies? I think that's more of a concern, a question of scale, I guess. I think it's more of a concern in the US of A than it perhaps is in the UK, although there is anti-corporation movements as well. But it's not so much of a big thing. I mean, you guys talk about big pharma and all this stuff all the time. We just get our pills from the NHS. We're not that bothered. I guess we don't pay as much, so probably that's a big thing about it. So yeah, I don't know what the drive of this song was. You just feel like smashing up a Starbucks. Fair enough. It could easily be a happy shopper in that case, or perhaps not. But we need answers, and to do that, we must go back and talk with Andy.
All right, so you are back from a possibly busted up Starbucks. What did you make of the track, John?
So it opens with a brief volley of what I think is clarinet, really little fucker, and then a rhythmic acoustic guitar. In comes the bass and a stringent drum beat, which sounds like somebody trying to release a much wanted car part in a scrapyard, breaker's yard, and the screw or the bolt is sheared, so it's time for that universal tool of finesse, the lump hammer. I think I invoked the spirit of Mo Tucker, much maligned, but that you get the idea. The vocals declare, well, it will always be the end of time, and then the end of law, and the end of life. I think I said that was quite quite a flat delivery. It's called a matter of fact, perhaps knowing almost. During this, we get another little reedy riff, which apologies to my British chums, but it did give me Karen up the Khyber vibes. It's kind of like they would use as a comedy sort of sound, that sort of that sort of reedy sort of riff. Funny. But put your titters away, as they say. The next section, the singer switches up the delivery into a more densely trafficked area, verbiage-wise. There's also a plinking going on in the left channel, quite really subtly placed in the mix. I think it's a piano, but you can hear the sound, but it's really hard to discern. It's just very subtle. And as I'm sort of listening to all this, as for reasons I'm yet to discern, or probably never will, we're going to mention we get a James Van Der Beek drive-by, or as Jay and Silent Bob would say, "Holy shit, it's the Dawson." At least he wasn't with the pie fucker. So I love that film. And then we get some mention of Sister Sister, which is a program I'm aware of, but I don't think I ever watched. I just knew it was. I'm sure they were twins, but probably the same bloody actress, the cheapskates. But yeah, I never watched an episode of. So why they were in the mix, I do not know. Anyway, this leads then to the title being. I've got over the Dawson Creek shenanigans. It leads to the title being repeated. The traditional 4 times, which is the rule. And I think again, really low down in the mix, I'm getting a lowish sound in the sort of like the sort of bass area of sound. I think it's some brass in the right channel, but again, it's really subtle. It's and we get this. He says after the sort of repeating of busted at the Starbucks, he says something about this bitter drink has made you drunk. Thoughts you think become a thunk. So we're definitely referring to the coffee emporium. I didn't know if it was some sort of analogy. Um, it made me think about this. I guess it's to do with scale. I mean, in the UK, there are now a plethora of caffeine peddlers, all of which I find quite literally distasteful. And most of the coffee I find tastes burnt to me. Um, and this sort of anti-corporate activism does exist in I sorry, I was reading my notes here and I've run one. I put the space in them so it says actually does sexist rather than does exist, which is I thought that funny. Anyway, it does exist on our side of the pond, but it's not so widespread or so vocal. It definitely is there. But I know you guys talk about things like big corporations and big pharma, especially, whereas we get all our pills from the NHS, cut price, so we're not moaning so much. It's just so I don't know if this is a particularly aimed at an individual event in said Starbucks where you just feel like smashing the place up, which is fair enough, or it's a general, attack on these sort of large corporations, so that Starbucks represent. But anyway, it's quite interesting. So the Dawson verse is then repeated, so I think it's repeating sort of within it, but the layers to this song build. So he's laid down a fairly simplistic groove, um, and then he's adding layer upon layers to it. Um, I think if you took away the vocals, the track it would be hard to like hum the track to somebody else as to what this sounds like. Um, but with building on these different things, it adds sort of interest. So, a second verse, I'm hearing banjos for some reason. And then there's also this really interesting like synthesizer noise. But each time it appears, this sort of note or chord is then cut off in its prime just as it's emerging, which it makes me think of like coming out of a beehive or something, and someone with big scissors is cutting off the notes as they come out. Um, and the twittering clarinet reappears as he busts up some more hot drink establishments. Um, but yeah, it's fascinating. All these layers. I mean, it almost to me, I had this thought that it sounds a bit like an Americanized, because it definitely sounds American. It sounds like an Americanized version of early beta band songs, where he puts in all these different layers to make it very interesting and builds it up. Um, then, to my sweet relief, I hear the sound of Canadian geese, a throaty tenor sax honking away, while he exclaims a couple of words that could be, I don't know what language they were, but they could easily be the alternate names of the Magi. We get Niak, Road Kona, something orange, and biscuit away, I think it said. Probably not. But yeah, and then he goes back to the Roastbusters. Who are you going to call? Roastbusters. I quite like that joke. Um, with more sax and other reed instruments coming in as well. There's one that sounds very Eastern. I don't know if it's a particular instrument or some sort of bastardized clarinet. I guess it must be. But it has that really sort of like North African stroke Middle East kind of sound to it. And then we get this casual sort of drum kit falling down the stairs ending, which fades out, only to return. And they open at the door and collect the last drum beat like some forgotten kitten and bundle them in the back of the van and they speed away. So yeah, this is an interesting song. I think the interest is in all the sort of layers and the different sort of bits the adds into it.
The variation.
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely preferred this to what do I call it? Round in circles thingy. Yeah. This is more up my alley. So yeah, I enjoyed this. It was all right.
Awesome. Glad you liked it. I believe in the episode devoted to soul coughing, I did a lot of talking about Doughty in it. It's hard not to. I'll try not to retread some of the same stuff that I discussed in that episode, but it's been quite some time. Um, I have a mind to link that down in the description field. I know it's not technically the same artist, but they're kind of inextricable, the two
Yeah.
acts, you know what I mean? They kind of go together. So, let's get into it. Michael Ross Doughty, born June 10th, 1970, is an American singer, songwriter, and author. He founded the band Soul Coughing in 1992, and as of The Heart Watches While the Brain Burns, released in 2016, he has released a total of 18 studio albums, live albums, and EPs, all since 2000. So that doesn't, I think, include the Soul Coughing oeuvre. So Doughty is the son of a military historian and U.S. Army officer Robert A. Doughty. He grew up on Army bases throughout the United States, including Fort Knox, Fort Hood, and Fort Leavenworth, and spent his teenage years living on the grounds of the United States Military Academy at West Point, where his father taught. He came to New York City at age 19 to study poetry at the New School, where he befriended singer-songwriter Annie DeFranco, who was one of his classmates. While a doorman at a New York club, the Knitting Factory, in that era, it was a hotbed for avant-garde jazz music, Doughty founded the band Soul Coughing. The band released three critically and commercially successful albums: Ruby Vroom in 1994, Irresistible Bliss in 1996, and El Oso in 1998, which was the album that I had you listen to Circles from. The greatest hits album Lust in Phase was released in 2002, and in 2024 a reunion tour was announced and undertaken. Doughty broke up Soul Coughing in 2000 due to personal problems. He was wearying of the band, and he was addicted to opiate painkillers, heroin, and alcohol. He was promptly dropped by Warner Brothers and began traveling in a rental car covering 9,000 miles on his first tour, playing acoustic shows. After shows, he would sit at the front of the stage and sell copies of his acoustic album Skittish, then on CDRs in a plain white sleeve. Warner Brothers had rejected the record in 1996. During his 3-year tour, Doughty sold 20,000 copies of Skittish and gradually developed a following independent of Soul Coughing. He remained without a label until when playing the Bonnaroo Festival in 2004, Doughty bumped into Dave Matthews, a longtime Soul Coughing fan who had the band open for him on 2 U.S. tours, including shows at Madison Square Garden. When Matthews professed to be a fan of Doughty's solo record, Rockety Roll, and the song 27 Jennifers, Doughty gave him a CD with rough mixes of an album he had been working on in Minneapolis with singer-songwriter and producer Dan Wilson. Doughty had been introduced to Wilson through their mutual artist manager, Jim Grant. Matthews eventually released the album on his ATO label as Howdy Melodic, an anagram of Michael Doughty. Howdy Melodic singles Looking at the World from the Bottom of a Well and I Hear the Bells were each featured on episodes of Grey's Anatomy and Veronica Mars, and Doughty appeared on The Late Show with David Letterman, marking his return to the musical mainstream. Leave it to a guy like Letterman to give Doughty a second chance, too. I think that's pretty cool, and it kind of speaks of the way Letterman works. He has since released a number of follow-up albums. Some of Doughty's albums include Circles, Super Bonbon, and The Very Best of Soul Coughing, Live at Ken's, and Stellar Motel. And he has used crowdfunding to finance their creation. He has also used Patreon to release a song every week for those paying $5 a month. Busted Up a Starbucks is the 4th track on the aforementioned Howdy Melodic. Before the album's official release, the early bootleg was leaked onto the internet with a different track list and early unfinished versions of the songs, most notably a version of Tremendous Brunettes, which did not include vocals from Dave Matthews, as well as the song I'm Still Drinking in My Dreams, which was excluded from the album when it was released. Like the original leak of the Skittish sessions, these versions of the songs were extremely hard to find. In 2012, I'm Still Drinking in My Dreams was released officially as part of Doughty's limited time subscription service, the Lo-Fi Lounge, which, with a mastered version appearing on the re-release of Howdy Melodic. However, the recording varies. That recording varies from this early bootleg version, specifically this version including a baritone solo after the bridge, and a released version of a solo is a keyboard imitating a slide guitar. So yeah, that is quite different. Doughty wrote this song, "Busting Up a Starbucks," with Dan Wilson. The two first crossed paths when Doughty's band Soul Coughing was on a bill with Wilson's band Semisonic at the HF Festival in Washington, D.C. They later shared a manager, Jim Grant, who teamed them up. Mike Doughty wrote the majority of this song after he saw a picture of a man kicking in a window of a Starbucks location in Seattle during the 1999 WTO ministerial conference protests. He noted that the protester was wearing Nikes and thought it was ironic. Not only are Nikes manufactured in working conditions more likely than not, worst case scenario than Starbucks cafes or perhaps even some of its bean pickers, but that it was also a symbol of trendiness, something Doughty felt the protester was trying to be when kicking out the Starbucks window. So let's jump into these lyrics. It will always be the end of time, the end of law, the end of life. The dogs will howl and yank the leash from tree to tree, from each to each. Does the man who make the shoes on you, clown? Does the man who makes the shoes own you, clown? You can't even pry the nameplate off, now can you? Fix it with your tiny fist there. James Vanderbeek and them sisters from Sister Sister, and there are two of them. It's not one. No expense was spared when casting Sister Sister. The only one that ever felt this is you, the force that's forcing you to feel like busting up a Starbucks. This bitter drink has made you drunk. The thoughts you think become unthunk. The sea's ablaze, the sky is too. The water's red and the flames are blue. Nyack, Ronkonkoma, East Orange, Piscataway, and then it does the chorus again. Nyack, Ronkonkoma, East Orange, Piscataway. Don't know why he included them, but they are areas probably, as far as my knowledge goes, pretty close to where our old friend Greg lives. He's on Long Island. Some of these areas are from the Long Island, New York, and New Jersey area. When he's singing about an incident that took place in Seattle, all the thousands of miles away on the other coast of the United States, I'm not sure why he's giving them a shout out, but he is. So that explains. I mean, a lot of these are like Native American words and words you've probably never heard before, so it comes as no surprise that you were left scratching your head there. But that explains it to some degree, anyway. In 2012, Doughty published a memoir called "The Book of Drugs," covering his formative years as a musician, what he called the dark, abusive marriage that was Soul Coughing, and his experiences with addiction and recovery. In May of 2020, Doughty published his second memoir titled "I Die Each Time I Hear the Sound," a memoir, which he wrote to expound upon his musical tastes and how they came to be. In August of 2020, Doughty announced his new project, Ghost of Vroom, with longtime collaborator Andrew Scrap Livingston. So that's what he has been up to ever since Soul Coughing disbanded. Obviously, they got together last year, a year and a half ish, to tour again, and that was a success from everything that I've heard about it. So, yeah, there's Mike Doughty in a nutshell, the brains behind Soul Coughing and the writer of this track, John. So thanks for giving it a spin, my friend.
Interesting. I can picture that. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I can picture that image of someone kicking in the front of the Starbucks wearing Nikes.
Exactly. Not really understanding the irony or the contradictory image thereof. Yeah, exactly.
It almost sounds like a Banksy picture.
Yeah, exactly. Like oh God, we want workers' rights, and you're kicking in the window of a Starbucks, or we want to unionize, and meanwhile, some 9-year-old who has to work 18-hour days in China stitched up those scoots that you're wearing, buddy. Interesting bit of hypocrisy. But yeah, thank you so much for giving this a spin, man. I appreciate your time and your thoughts on this one.
Mon plaisir.
Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track by Mike Doughty. If you're familiar with it and there's other stuff by him you would like us to check out, please feel free to drop it down in the comments field below. Always interested to hear what you guys have to say and what you guys have to offer up. Also, please, if you haven't done any or all of these things, like, share, and or subscribe. It only costs you a couple seconds of your time, but it goes a long way to help us here at the channel, and we really do appreciate it. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.